Hi, my name's Maria Harris. I'm a very concerned mother about what is going on in and around our world at this point in time. I've done my own research and come up with the fact that there's others probably ruling our world and we don't realise it. And it's going to have reflections and it'll have an impact on our children. So it's good to know that we need to know a lot more about it. It's also becoming quite obvious that it's more becoming a pandemic and a scandemic that's laid out in front of us, and we need to know more about who is really pulling the strings of the world. So today I'm talking to a person who has for many years done lots of research into the origins of what we are experiencing. He is formerly a UK police officer, and for many years he's done lots of research on ancient code breaking. He's an author of 7 fascinating books and also a speaker. He's a spiritual life coach, and he really is the real life Robert Langdon from the Da Vinci Code. Today he's going to be talking about a lot of ancient signs and symbols and imparts some knowledge of what we're not aware of, and these signs and symbols are all around us all the time, but we don't always realise what their meanings are and what's really going on in the world, and also taking us back to the origins of what is happening right now. So I'd like to give a warm welcome to Mr. Michael Feeley. Hello, Michael.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for joining us. So, who and what is really going on, and where did it all come from?
That is an extremely long and in-depth question, but I will try my best to narrow it down as much as I possibly can. People believe that the language of this world is the likes of English, American English, Chinese, Japanese. The language of this world is codes and symbols. And when you go all the way back to the ancient past, to ancient Egypt, to all the different ancient civilizations, they have left signs and symbols and codes. Now, codes originally started when the ancients used to put symbols on the barks of trees. So when we have the likes of library, it comes from liber, which is book, but it also comes from the bark of a tree. So they used to write and carve things on the barks of tree to have this kind of secret communication between certain groups. So only those who are privy to that information were able to pick up on the language and speak that language, which is what we have in the modern day. Now, when you look at tree, it is the same word as truth. So true and tree come from the same word. So we have all of this ancient past, and the tree can bring into to Druidism, which means the hour of knowledge. When you look at the roots of the tree, they symbolize the unseen, the unseen knowledge, the secret knowledge. Now, when you look at the likes of the word blasphemer, or to blaspheme, it just means to uproot. So in other words, if you are a blasphemer, you are uprooting the secret knowledge from the unseen to the seen. So they obviously had to put a negative connotation on that, because people who were getting close to the truth, they wanted to sort of give some kind of negative label. So, so you would shy away from doing that. So who is really running this world? It is not presidents, it is not prime ministers. And that, for anybody who's done just an ounce of research, it is quite strikingly obvious that it is not Boris Johnson, it is not President Biden, and so on, who is running this world. So who is? Well, if Boris Johnson and President Biden are not in office on their 6-week holiday, on their 6-week retreat, who is running the country then? You have people who are in the civil service, you have people who are in the corridors of power, who are very secretive. You have all over the world, in all of these different organizations of significance, you have the money men, the money people, who pull the purse strings. But they are the ones who are running the show. So when you see the likes of Boris Johnson bringing into the public domain a policy, that policy has been written by somebody else, and it is a case of Prime Minister, sign this. And these people are extremely powerful because they have lots and lots of money, and they control the industry, they control the media. If you look at the media, for instance, there's many thousands of media outlets throughout the world, and I think anybody would agree that there's thousands of them. But if you take those thousands and thousands of media outlets, there's actually 6 people in the world that run them all. So it's quite easy to see
Yeah.
The news that we get on Sky, the news that we get on BBC, the news that we get on ITV is the same script. And when you actually compare some of the newspaper articles in different states of America, when you get some of the news articles that you see on BBC, then you flick across the Sky News, it is the same script because the same people are writing that script. And these are the people who are really steering society. It could go really, really deep into beyond government, above government. You could really go deep into the original creation of the universe, in all fairness, because there's certain timelines, there's certain grids that we are meant to be on. At some stage in our ancient history, we've been hacked, that the computer program has been hacked. And what has happened is they put some kind of grid overlay over where we should have been to prevent us from getting there. And every aspect of society has been manufactured. Even reality, the reality that we believe to be real is not real. It is their reality. It's their reality, not ours. And just to give you a bit of science about reality, there are universal waves, the waveform that are going about all around us all the time. Now, we can only ever see, as humans, we can only see one possible outcome of superposition. Superposition is multiple different positions at once. You can be a wave, you can be a particle, etc. And you can be the both states at once. But as human beings, we can only ever see one of those multiple states. So when a wave comes past, our five senses pick up that wave, it passes that information to the brain, and that brain interprets that into a familiar world. It's like putting a disk of code into a computer and it translates that into an image. Now that is our reality, but the brain creates a familiar reality based on memory in many respects. So when we see something, well, the brain recognizes that last time I saw that, this is how it appeared, this is how it was, so this time it must be the same. So we never actually see the outside world. We don't even know if there is an outside world. All we know is that our brain is creating a familiar world based on universal waves that are passed to it by the five senses. So when we look at what we believe to be a distant star, a distant planet, that is really on the surface of the retina of the eye. So it brings into question distance. It brings into question everything that we believe to be true, believe to be a reality. Now, when you look at the people who are behind what is going on in the world, because when something happens in the world, it is not by chance, it is by deliberate manipulation. And anything that happens in politics happens because that is how it wanted to happen. Now, when you look at, famine, poverty, homelessness, this could be cured overnight, but there's no political will to do that, because it then gives those who are pulling the strings the advantage over those who are homeless, those who are in poverty, those who need benefits from them. And it is all about psychopathic control and manipulation. And every aspect of our reality has been manipulated to this. The fact that we believe that we have free will, we don't have free will. The universe is created with absolute determinism. But within that determinism, there is spheres of containment. So we have a little bit of free will within that sphere of containment, but it is indeed very, very limited free will. I can go to the polling booth and I can vote for Boris Johnson or Keir Starmer. Now, I may feel that that gives me free will, but really it's very limited free will because the two choices have already been chosen for me. So if I go out here and turn left or right, it's a very minute piece of free will, but left and right has already been created within my sphere of containment. So if you look at who is running the world, it is real psychopathic control freaks that want to control every aspect of every single aspect of everybody's life. And what we're seeing in the world at the moment is a gigantic push for that agenda.
Yeah.
And that really, we are surrounded by control freaks that want to rule us, who have hacked where we should be and are deliberately keeping us behind where we should be now.
From my research, I've done research the fact that these people, beings, if you like to call them, they want to keep us suppressed because they've got technology and knowledge that's light years ahead of where we are. We're like in the Victorian times. And they don't want to give us that because they don't want to empower us. But what is it about us humans, what they're really worried about, how we can carry it all forward if we really had all this knowledge?
What you have to realize about the human state is that our genetics were programmed in the stars, and they ended up here through solar winds, through whatever that they ended up here. Our physical body was created in the Orion Nebula when a star exploded and created the carbon and the oxygen in order for this physical body to exist on Earth. So if our DNA is from the stars and our body is not from Earth, then there's something special about us. We are star stuff, we are star seeds, and we ended up on this particular planet for whatever reason. Now, when you look at, when I was talking a few months ago about superposition and how waves and particles can be either a wave or a particle, or they can be multiple states at once. They can also choose a location in time and space. They have chosen now to be here. So the reason that we are sitting here now, and the reason that we are able to interact in the way that we are, is because our composite parts, our particles, our subatomic particles, have decided that they wish to be manifest now. So we are here for a particular reason by choice. Now, because we are special, because we are from somewhere else, those who understand that the moment that we begin to realize what we are, the game is up for them. You know, how many times do you see the playground bully pick on someone who is weak, pick on someone who will not fight back? The moment he picks on somebody who does fight back, he retreats, he's gone, because he's a coward in all respects. And that is what these people are. So they have to try and suppress people, keep the knowledge away from them, keep them in duality, which is when we spoke before the show some time ago about obelisks everywhere around the world. There are multiple meanings for obelisks, but one of them is keeping humanity in the split. Keeping humanity in the split is keeping humanity in duality. By keeping humanity in duality, it is exposing the opposite polarities, what keeps us opposite instead of what keeps us united. So for argument's sake, you know, you can have male against female, you can have black against white, you can have Labour against Conservative. That is what is meant by keeping someone in the split, keeping someone in duality. What you're doing is you are focusing on their differences and you are exposing and amplifying their differences. When I look at a tree or anything and I say, I saw a tree, what I am saying is that that tree and me are in the same awareness. So therefore, there is no duality, there is no separation, everything is one. When people realize that there is no separation, everything is within the same awareness, space is not empty, there is no space, there is no separation. Just because there looks to be a gap between you and I, well, the unseen world, there is no gap, everything is full. It is teeming with life, it is teeming with existence. But if they can keep us arguing, if they can keep us at odds, if they can keep us within that split, within that duality, and not ever attaining that non-duality, which is unity, then they can control us much easier. And everything that they're doing is to keep us apart.
Yeah, well, hence the reason for this divide and rule. That's what they call it, don't they, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I know that these families who really rule the world, they go back to ancient times. They are known to be called the Illuminati, but there's a Druid aspect to all of this. What is the difference between all of this, and how did it come from the ancient world into the Druid world into now?
What I've looked is when I looked at the ancient world as a separate civilization, I soon realised that they were not separate. They're in different parts of the world. They had different shapes of monoliths and monuments, but they were not separate. And they were not separate because their monoliths and monuments were saying the exact same things. Their monoliths and monuments were actually with mathematical longitude and latitude coordinates. They were given the location of each of the monuments of Earth and beyond. So, you know, you've got obelisks on the moon, you've got pyramids on the moon, you've got obelisks on Mars, you've got pyramids on Mars, you've got an obelisk on Mercury, you've got all these things, all of these different planets where you have the same monuments and monoliths that are saying the same thing, but they are given the coordinates of each and every one of them. So therefore, if I know mathematics and I'm a visitor, let's say the face on Mars, and I look at the longitude and latitude coordinates of the face on Mars, then I can find Stonehenge precisely. because within that coordinate it's telling me how to find Stonehenge. Now I can do the reverse of that. Now I can find the Great Pyramid of Giza by looking at the coordinates of the Sidonian city on Mars, and vice versa. I can look at different monuments and monoliths around the world, and I can pinpoint that exactly, but I can pinpoint other monuments based on the mathematics of that particular monument itself. So we have a real mathematical matrix system of satellite navigation, but through numbers, through mathematics. So when you go really, really far back, really far back, you see that the likes of ancient Egypt and other ancient places were one of knowledge, one of wisdom. But just like any system, it gets hacked and people start using that information for their own self-gratitude, for their own purposes, for their own advancement over everybody else. So if they sort of knew secret matters, if they knew the secrets of the universe, if they knew the psychology and the genetics of man, then they could manipulate the genetics and the psychology of man. And they began to start taking this knowledge, but use it for their own purposes. So what the original classes did was to hide that knowledge. And they hid it from the rogue priesthoods and all of these agencies that wish to do, should we say, bad negative things with this information. So if you imagine the Great Pyramid as a time capsule of knowledge. Now the Great Pyramid is the original Noah's Ark. It is the true Noah's Ark. Mm-hmm. But you have this arcane knowledge for the few that has been sort of encrypted within the Great Pyramid, which has been set on the waters of time for a far off future to be revealed when the time was right. Now, when you look at ancient Egyptian star maps and star codes, which was taken by the Hebrews, and it formulated the Hebrew calendar. Now that Hebrew calendar was hidden and encrypted within the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls that they were encrypted within, in the Qumran Cave Scrolls, was taken by the Knights Templar, and they were hidden at Rosslyn Chapel, and I found out where they are. So we have this information that would bring down the church, but it also contains star knowledge and star charts that give dates for certain things. Now, on the basis of these star charts, I've been able to date the Great Pyramid at over 73,000 years of age, based on these star codes that are hidden in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So if you imagine the Hebrew calendar now, everything was timed for the 17th 360-year cycle. This is now the 17th 360-year cycle. So it was timed to be revealed now, when it stood the most chance to be understood and to be revealed to the world, so that this ancient knowledge could come back into the arena, so that it would help people to actually get to the timeline that they should be on, to the place that they should be on, because everything has been hijacked, everything has been steered ground, everything has been steered the wrong way. And this ancient knowledge. So we have the ancient, to say, the ancient rogue priesthoods that became the Illuminati, that became all of these different Opus Dei and all these, the Jesuit order and all those different things that we are aware of. And they held on to the secret knowledge, but it's encrypted everywhere. It's encrypted in vehicle logos, in clothing brands, in architecture. Everywhere you look, there is a coded symbolic message that we just see as a pretty geometric design. It's not. It's information that is encoded within to be released. So we have all of this where it started off as a good thing. It was taken out of context by certain rogue elements, and it was turned into a secret thing, and everybody else got the rest. So everybody else got Moses and Jesus and Noah was physical people, but whereby in secrecy, they understood that Moses, Noah, and Jesus, and Mary Magdalene, and all of these other characters were metaphors for secret knowledge. So that they were never real people, but they are metaphorical, telling us of our potential godlike self. And that is what they're trying to keep away from us. Where does Druid come into it? Druids are, as I said, oak knowledge, the knowers of the oak tree. When you look at the Druids, they used to have magic wands made out of the holly tree. So therefore we have the magic of Hollywood. So it goes all the way deep into movies, into Netflix, into all of these things where they're giving us this secret information, but it's just for us to spot it. It is for us to decipher what they are telling us.
I find this mind-blowing. I know what's going on is horrific. You could say it's horrific. And when we know more about the ancient world and how they brought it into this world and how things are going on still that we don't realise, it is horrific. But at the same time, it's a fascinating subject and it's absolutely mind-blowing. So Michael, can you talk to us about signs and symbols that we know, that we see every day, that's got these hidden meanings? And I don't know if you've got any pictures of them or whatever you want to impart.
I mean, literally everywhere. So, I mean, you walk past the church, you can see the archways. Now, when you look at the archways, most of them at the entrance of a church is a pointed archway. Now, that is the Holy Grail. That represents the yoni. So, when you exit the church, you are symbolizing a rebirth of self through the yoni, through the Holy Grail. Now, the Holy Grail is certainly on Earth, because everything on Earth was set to mirror the stars in the sky. So the Holy Grail of the sky is the Orion, when you have the Orion's belt and the 7 stars of Orion, which is the chalice of the sky. Now you have the likes of Jerusalem and the Vatican City that are in alignment with Orion. Now, the key of Solomon is Orion. And as I said before, we come through the Silver Gate as a soul into this reality. Now, when you look at the 9 pyramids, they also represent the 9 months of gestation, and we come out of that gestation into the matrix, which is this world through the womb. When you look at the original Holy Communion, it is the drinking of semen and menstrual blood, which is the fluids of life. So everything really, you can look at a church, you can look at all the architecture of the church, you can go past, for argument's sake, let's look at the Nissan car sign. Nissan means April. And when you see the design of that, you will see that it is the Passover moon. The Passover moon is the Last Supper. Now, supper comes from soup. A soup is obviously a liquid. Now, the primordial soup was menstrual blood. That is moon energy. So you can see how the Nissan, the moon, the Last Supper, the menstrual blood, the Holy Communion is all connected just by just a few simple symbols. They're just everywhere. As I mentioned before, the obelisk. The obelisk points towards the blazing star of Freemasonry. It is the star of the gods, which again is the solar trinity, which is around the Pleiades.
And the pointed statues, the stone pointed statues, the long statues that we see everywhere. Have you got any pictures of that? I don't know if you can show your screen.
Yes, I have. Let me just find them, because I do have them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will get to the obelisk in just a moment, but this is the key. So when you look at the Chiru, which you see in all churches, which is the symbol of Christ on the right there, the P and the X, well, that comes from the Orion Nebula, which is the symbol of Christ. Now, the lost symbol is the key of Solomon, which is Orion, and it is a cosmic signpost, which is the way to the secret of where we came from, as I was saying, through the Silver Gate of Orion. So we come through the Silver Gate of Orion, which you can see there, and we come through the gateway. We come into this world, the pyramids, which are the 9 months of gestation, and we come out of the yoni, the Sphinx, which is the golden ratio. There you can see the yoni. The mandorn in the middle where the Sphinx faces represents the yoni. Now, from left to right, from ear to ear, gives you a measurement of 153. Now, that's significant because Christ caught 153 fish. The 17th course level is the entrance of the Great Pyramid. If you add 1 to 17, it is 153. When you get inside the Grand Gallery, it's 153 feet long with 153 steps, and so on and so on. So we then come through the higher man born into spiritual soul, into the matrix, because Earth is really a mirror of the skies. So we see the cross of the church, which is also Orion. The Bible itself is really Giza. So Giza Plateau is the Bible. Now, when we see the mummies with the X, that is also a symbol of Orion, as you can see there. Z, when we go to sleep, Z is also a symbol of Orion. Sleep is a metaphor for death. So Orion, the Sahu, the soul, where the soul goes at physical death. Here we see the likes of pop stars that are giving you the same symbol of Orion. When we look at this is all to do with the cenotaph, and again, Osiris wearing black, the god of the underworld, the cenotaph meaning tomb. Here we can see that the 3 main pyramids of Egypt are aligned to the belt of Orion, but also the 6 queen pyramids are also Orion markers at different times. They are horizontal and perpendicular alignments, astronomical clock, and they are marking Orion at different stages on its journey. Also, the shape of the format of the pyramids is also the same as Earth, Venus, and Jupiter from the surface of Mars. Now, it's significant because the word Cairo comes from Al-Qahira, which means the place or the camp of Mars. So when you look at the face on Mars, which is on the left, when you look at the face of the Sphinx, and when you see them both overlaid, they are the exact same face. Now we see here we see a pyramid on Mars, the 5-sided pentagram, a pyramid on Mars. Here we see an obelisk on Phobos, one of the moons of Mars. Here we see a statue on Mars. Now, when you get a map overlay of the Sardinian city on Mars and you put it over Avebury in Wiltshire, where Stonehenge is, it's an exact map replica. Now, if you look at Silbury Hill and the mound, and then just to the left of 19.47, that is Silbury Hill in Wiltshire and the altar of witness on planet Mars. They are an exact replica. The Pleiades is an exact replica, or the Sardinian city on Mars represents the Pleiades. Here are pyramids on Venus. Here are obelisks on the moon. This is a pyramid in one of the craters of the moon. Now, when you look at this is on a place on the moon called the Ocean of Storms. Now, when you get the coordinates of this and you place them onto Earth, which I've done, guess where it comes out? Egypt.
Oh.
So there's been quite obviously some kind of connection. Now, there's also, as I was saying, lots of longitude and latitude coordinates as a navigation system between all of these monuments. Okay, so just moving on to the obelisk. Now, when you
this stone, the symbol that we see, is this the same symbol where they put all the poppies around, sometimes in villages and things like that?
Yeah, there's a cenotaph one, and there's normally an obelisk that appears all over the place. So this is on the left here is the Grand Gallery inside the Great Pyramid. Now, if you look at the light at the top of that, now you look at the left and you see different land maps in America and like government buildings, you'll see that they replicate each other. Now, when you look at this, as I was talking about the obelisk, which is mimicked by the blazing star, the Ra symbol, and the Pleiades, and you have a 33-degree arc, the 33 degrees of masonry, there you see the obelisk pointing towards the Ra sign. Now here we see it in more detail, the Star of the Gods. That gives remarkable resemblance to the obelisk. It is really a target star marker. Now here we see the Vatican City. Now they've put 3 obelisks. If you look at the top corner or the top of this picture, next to the word Taurus, you will see 3 sun-looking stars, which is the solar trinity. Now that has been marked by the 3 obelisks on the Vatican City, which are in direct alignment with the stars. Now, going back to a key, this is the Vatican looking from an aerial view. It is a key.
It is. I've been there actually.
Yeah.
I've been right in there. And
but in the middle of that Union Jack looking place, you'll see an obelisk, which is the one where you can see St. Peter's obelisk. Now, St. Peter was given the key by Jesus, and it is that key that gives the Pope the authority to rule. So it is the key of St. Peter. Now, Peter means rock, and the planet that rules rocks is Saturn. So we have the gold, this is the Vatican key. We have the silver and gold key, which is the gate of God, the Golden Gate, hence why we have a Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And we have the gate of man, which is the silver, which really goes to the man coming into this world. So here we see the chalice, which is formed by Orion. So you can see the 7 stars of Orion with the belt is the chalice, the holy grail of the sky, which is really the blood of Christ, talking about the menstrual blood, talking about the Last Supper, talking about the Paschal Moon. So as above, so below. Now, when I'm going to go through a series here, so you can see the pyramid and you can see the solar trinity above, which gives you the hourglass. But you also get the T, which is Taurus, Taurus, the solar trinity. It then gives you the key of Solomon, which is the Orion Nebula. We then start to get the Holy Grail. And then when you look at this, you will see that all of them come together as one. Now, this is marked above the Great Pyramid into the stars. So the Great Pyramid is also a stargate, a gateway to other worlds. So there you go.
Wow.
You have the sand at the top. Now, when you get the solar trinity above the pyramid and the pyramid below, the pyramid represents the sand at the bottom of the hourglass. Now, that is the beginning and the end. And it goes all into the path of initiation, into the Sphinx of Egypt, into the fourth initiation, which is sacrifice, which is Christ on the cross. We come into this world as humans, into the cubical city. Now, we are imprisoned really by the five senses, which are the five wounds of Christ, because man becomes the cross when he comes into this world. And the five wounds of Christ, the five senses, but also the pentagram, which is microcosmic man. And we have all of these different symbols all around the world that are telling us of this symbology. You know, that the Lion of Judah shall break every chain. When you look at council buildings, government buildings, you will see this motif. There is the Lion of Judah that breaks every chain. What does the unicorn represent? It represents the third eye, the energy of the third eye, your spiritual sight.
Wow.
They are telling us all of these things. Our Father who art in heaven esoterically means the knowledge inside our head. So we have all of these different things that are telling us. Now, you sent me a picture, an interesting picture, which I'll go to
now.
Bottom
thing, isn't it?
And I'll explain that because it correlates to the Nazca lines. I'm just getting through just a few slides,
Of course.
so I can get to it. Okay, so here you see the famous Nazca lines. So what are they? Well, this is the picture that you sent me, which is really in Vancouver. So it's the same kind of format, which is a pictorial. It's a message. So what are they? The Nazca lines and that picture you sent me is a convergence of sound and drawing, which is known as a cross-modality information transfer, which I'll get to in a moment. It is also the convergence of auditory information. Now, the convergence of auditory information is the combinations of sounds and images, which is what we have as a language. Now, this is how sound can make geometric patterns.
Is this frequency, isn't it? Is this frequency?
It's frequency. So if you imagine, and again, I'll go into a moment, these lovely pictures that we're seeing in crop circles and Nazca lines are being produced by sound.
Wow.
Now, a cross-modality information transfer is when acoustic signals on acoustic hotspots are transformed into symbolic visual representation. So in other words, these pictures are created by sound on certain higher frequency amplification areas, which are usually ley lines. So it represents symbolic thinking, which is telling travelers that may be passing Earth that actually we are actually a higher intelligence, because when we can think of things that are not physically present, it sets us apart from the animal kingdom, because we are able to imagine things that are not really there, whereas they see things that are there. So there's been clearly some kind of interaction, some kind of initiation of contact. This happened, our ability to do symbolic thinking happened around about 100,000 years ago. And it came at a time of major genetic reorganization. So in effect, the Nazca lines and these pictorials that you showed me could be anything up to 100,000 years old, because that is when humanity had the ability for symbolic thinking because of a genetic reorganization. So here we have clearly a landing site. Now this is 22 kilometers up a mountain, unbroken.
Wow.
It is what it is telling visitors that we are intelligence. We have an intelligence, so come and visit us. You know, we have all of these things. These animals of Nazca also relate to the planets as well. They are talking of gateways. They are talking about all kinds of planetary things. The Sphinx is the Lion's Gate. On the 8th of August, we are entering the Lion's Gate. There's all of these symbols that the ancients are telling us, and it's just really just amazing, what you can see and what you can find.
So how, just going back to that photo that I gave you at the bottom of the sea, is that made of stone? Is that all stone?
Yes.
Yeah. Would they be tall, or would they be low lying or tall?
Well, they would have been low lying, because it depends upon what pictorial they wish to do. Now, when you look at the likes of, when I went to Stonehenge, in the inner circle of Stonehenge, there was my co-host who just wasn't expecting it, but just walked into the center and started making all of these tonal rills, these harmonics of the voice, and each of the stones of Stonehenge reverberated and sang back to us. Now, these ancients were known as the masters of sound. Now, when you see the likes of the Egyptian was scepter, where you have like a tuning fork at the bottom of it, they were able to levitate through sound. They were also able to create laser beams through sound. So when you see these ancient buildings that are just so precisely put together that you can't put a piece of paper between them, it's because it was sound that was creating laser beams that were able to cut the stones. So they were masters of sound. Now, when you are a master of sound, you can control things through sound. You can levitate rocks, you can move rocks, you can introduce certain harmonic frequencies, as we saw there with the Chulanadi plates, which is where sand on a drum, you put in different frequencies and it creates different shapes. Now, when you look at the likes of crop circles are a pictorial of the sound of the environment, and so are snowflakes. So when you see these beautiful geometric shapes, that is the sound of the environment that has been frozen in time.
So you're saying that those crop circles, they're not man-made, like everyone tends to think they're man-made. They've just happened because of a certain frequency has aligned with the environment.
Yeah, what is happening is there's some kind of, and Nazca have found this as well. There is some kind of signal being transmitted from the rings of Saturn,
Right.
and it is a non-natural signal. So in other words, they have said that it is some kind of communication. Now, what is happening when I've listened to the sound and the pitch of the frequencies of the signal of Saturn's rings, it matches the exact frequency that has been found in crop circles. So what appears to be happening is this signal, which really, in sound terms, you're talking probably 90 minutes, less than 90 minutes to get from Saturn to Earth. You have these signals that are coming from the rings of Saturn. They are being picked up by the crystalline aerial, which is Stonehenge, and that is basically taking that sound and this is creating a picture on the landscape through sound. So it is some kind of, now some of these crop circles are communication in binary code. Now, I've gone into the creation of the universe and everything is a binary code. A binary code are the numbers 0 and 1. So there are only two binary numbers, but every number has a binary code. So when you look at everything in the universe, it comes down to that binary choice. So even if you get the Bible, it is a computerized book, but it is a binary choice for man. Do I choose good over evil? Well, that's 0 over 1, negative over positive, and so on and so on. So it is all computerized, but it's all communication through sound. And they were able, when you look at, for anyone who's read or heard of the 64 keys of Enoch, the 64 keys of Enoch is the 8x8 grid, 8 times 8 is 64, that the Giza Plateau is built upon. Now, when you get these 64 keys, which are harmonic keys, and you get 64 tones of a voice, that could be 64 people or 32 people with 2 tones each. But when you reach the 64th note, which is the hemi, demi, semi, quaver, you open the Stargate through sound. Now, when you get a whole number, it is 4 beats, 4 over 4. Now, when you divide 4 by 64, it gives you a fraction of 1 over 16. Now, when you look at the Egyptian fractions for the eye of Horus, 1 over 16 relates to the ear. Now, where do you listen to sound? Through the ear. They're telling you harmonic tones that are opening stargates to other worlds, but they're doing it through frequency via sound.
So Where does the Georgia Guidestones come in to all of this? Because it's a relatively new build. It's like in the 80s they put that up, didn't they? And they
Yeah.
actually put on there what they want for this planet and what they want for the world. So how does that all sort of correlate?
Well, it comes about because I mean, who put them there? It's anybody's guess who put them there, but nevertheless,
Mm.
the inscriptions that are on them tell you the plan, tell you the agenda. And when you look at them and when you study them, what is happening at the moment in the world is being used as an excuse to get to that point.
Yeah.
And they're using every facet of the current situation to get to where they want to be. And they want to reduce the population. They want to bring more artificial intelligence, which will connect humans to computers. I mean, we are computers anyway, but they wish us to be connected to their computers, to their database. But everything that they are doing under this current global pandemic, shall we say, is getting them to where they want to be, which is stressed on the Georgia Guidestones, which is spoken about in George Orwell's book that he wrote in 1948 called 1984. So it is all there for us to see. You know, when you look at the government's own website, even though it's quite difficult to find, you will see a lot of information on there which is completely contrary to what is being told by the media and being told by the government in public speeches. It tells you the truth on their website, and you just need to look for the information. The information is there. The information is all around us at any given time. But how many people just walk by with the blinkers on? How many people will see something and not see them? And the reason for that is something that is not in your awareness cannot be known. So until it is brought into your awareness, you're not going to see it. The moment that it is brought into your awareness, then you'll begin to see, because your bandwidth has been expanded. Your awareness has been expanded. So when you mention something to someone and they say, oh, you're just one of them conspiracy theorists, you're still opening them up to something.
Yeah.
Because they are now able to contemplate something slightly greater than what they did.
So you say that this time is happening now and the ancient world is coming into the now. We all know what the overall plan is, but we know that they probably won't get there. We know that this could be thwarted, it could be, but we also might always have a type of ruling of this sort of nature going on forever and ever. But if it didn't get thwarted, how would they want us to live from the ancient world into now? Why they brought it into now?
What you need to realize is that when you get to a certain level of awareness, when you get to a certain level of a state of being, you understand that you don't need gods, you don't need rulers, you don't need laws, you don't need people telling you what is right, what is wrong, because you know what is right and what is wrong. I don't need the government to impose laws on me to tell me that it's wrong to steal someone's property, because I know.
Mm.
And when you get to a certain level of being, you have your own moral compass, and you will not go against that moral compass, because that is a stage of spiritual development within. Now, when you look at the ancient philosophy, the true ancient philosophy, it was know thyself. Now, when science and everything wishes to study the universe, when it wishes to study nature, when it wishes to study the oceans, it's missing one gigantic portion of seeking that knowledge. The answer to the mystery is within the mystery itself. If you want to understand the universe, if you want to understand nature, if you want to understand the oceans, you have to understand yourself, because you are a smaller version of all of those things. So if you don't understand yourself, you cannot possibly know all of these things that you seek and wish to find, because they're all inside you. That is why the pentagram is such a significant symbol for the ancients, for the mystery schools, for everything else, because it represents microcosmic man. Now, what is happening in the universe is happening inside of us, because we are the universe. We are not separate from the universe.
Mm.
So to understand all of these things, you have to understand yourself. And when you understand yourself, you raise yourself to a certain level. And when you get to that level, you can live independently without the need to worship gods, because gods have never served man. Gods have only served to divide man by wars, by fighting. You know, what we have at the moment is religious wars over lies. My God is more peaceful than yours, so I'm going to kill you to prove that my God loves me. It's just madness. But it's madness because the human psyche is at such a low vibration that it cannot understand what it is saying. You know, I mean, when I go to a church and you can have the 10 Commandments in one hand and you can look around the church and you can see how many of them have been breached. You know, do not have any graven images. What do you see all around churches? Graven images of Christ everywhere. So they've already breached one of their commandments, you know, so they do not know what they are doing. That they don't. And even the priests are not, they don't understand what they are doing.
So just going back a little bit deeper, and obviously announcing the elephant in the room, what are these beings? Are they humans? Are they, what are these beings? Are they hybrids? Are they completely different to us? Or different type of race?
That would be answer D, which is all of the above. So you have, let's put, I mean, it will come to a shock to most people. So I do try and tend to deal with the human elements of things. Yeah. However, you have, should we say, we have the queen of the hive, and the queen of the hive controls the hive. So it controls the workers, it controls the drones, it controls everything else. The people who are running this earth at the moment are not, should we say, not at the top of the tree, although they are very high up on the branches.
Yeah.
The control of this world is coming from other dimensions. It is coming from beings that have the ability to travel between dimensions, including our dimension. Now, dimension really is a separation. If you imagine my father's house has many rooms, if you imagine that, you know, the third dimension has its own frequency, it has its own certain laws and principles, and everybody within that dimension follows those laws and principles, you know, the model of science, the law of physics, whatever, and that changes as you go to different dimensions. Now, if I, for argument's sake, me as a three-dimensional being now, if I was to go to a two-dimensional world, a two-dimensional land, everything on that two-dimensional land would obviously be two-dimensional. Two-dimensional beings would understand forward and backwards, left and right, but they don't understand above, because that is not a dimension that they understand. So if I was to go into their dimension from my dimension, they wouldn't be able to see me, but they would be able to hear me.
Wow.
How many people tell you that they hear their name being called or they hear voices? Because they're being communicated with from a dimension that we don't understand, because we don't know where it's coming from. When I've seen shadow people, three-dimensional shadow people, walking through walls in my house, being in hotel rooms when I've been in America to do a talk, if you imagine that a shadow loses a dimension in its projection. So if I go out in the midday sun, my shadow is two-dimensional because I'm three-dimensional. If I see a three-dimensional shadow, it's coming from the fourth dimension because it's losing a dimension in its projection. So we have all of these beings that are able to travel to different dimensions and are able to manipulate those different dimensions. When we see videos and pictures of UFOs, and you'll see 7 beautiful lights in the sky that appear at different times, that's probably the same object coming into our dimension from another dimension, but we're only able to see bits of it at a time. So it gives the impression that there's all of these different things when really it's probably just one entering our dimension at different times. So the true rulers are interdimensional travelers that are able to manipulate and go in between the dimensions, but they obviously need their minions to basically carry out their plans, carry out their agendas, and that is what we're seeing at the moment. But for people that find that difficult to understand, put it this way: you have the government, you have a shadow government.
Yeah.
Every 4 years, the government changes, but the shadow government never changes. And that really is probably a more simplistic way of putting it. Regardless of who's at number 10, the people who run will always run regardless of who's at number 10. and that is probably a more simplistic way of saying things.
There is absolutely so much to learn, isn't there? I mean, it's so deep. It could go much deeper than that. I think we both know that as well. How did you find out all this information? Because obviously you're working from a clean slate. There's no Google to investigate. There's no books to look back on, really. How did you really do all your research?
It's really multifaceted. I mean, for me, I was always open-minded at the age of, I remember at the age of probably 6, 7 and 8, watching films such as The Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston and having real deep adult conversations with myself, thinking, could this really happen? You know, how could this have happened? And could it have happened? Could this man have parted a sea? I mean, now I know that now it's a metaphor, but can this happen? And I was always open-minded. I was always inquisitive. I always felt like I don't belong here. This is strange. This is mad. This is not how it's meant to be. It's backwards, and that lived with me through teens into 20s and whatever. And probably about 2006, 2007, I began to see a few things that were unusual. That then went much more serious into 2009. When it was really was my awakening, and that was a traumatic one. But from there, I experienced a lot of things. So initially, I was purely an experiencer of different things, an experiencer with no answers to the questions. I was just seeing things all the time. That then progressed into starting to get interested in ancient things, and started to get interested in the truth of these ancient things. And I really can't pinpoint how that transitioned. It just did. You know, it's like just being on a boat and then looking around and the beach is 2 miles away and you can't remember how you got 2 miles from the beach. It just transitioned into looking at ancient things. And then in 2010, my wife and I was deciding that we wanted to go on holiday, and we both had a real strong feeling that we needed to go to Egypt. But we knew that it wasn't a holiday. There's something else. There's a reason. And literally 10 to 14 days before we went, I had a strange email from a psychic medium in Scotland, and I didn't know her. She didn't know me. She said that she had a message, and it started off with regards to your trip to Egypt. It's like, right, okay.
Oh, wow.
And basically, I do have the message still, but I can't remember it word for word. But in essence, it was get to the closest to the right hand side of the Sphinx as you possibly can. There's going to be ancient tools added to your toolbox for the benefit of all meaning the past, present, and the future. You must first of all understand it before you can teach it. And it's like, I'm going on holiday in 10 days' time. What's this message? So it started from there, and it was quite clear that there was some kind of reason, that there was something going on. And I was sort of told later that in order to be able to speak about it, you had to experience it. And a phrase that I came up with was, you can't talk about wine without first having knowledge of the grape. So in other words, you know, you have to understand what's going on before you can speak about it and help people. And that really was, so it became very, very clear that everything that I was doing, that everything that I was seeing was being steered. It was being guided. It was being information popping into my head, you know, which then just instantly grew. And I noticed that things were coming into my head as a question, but within the same question, there was the answer. And that was connecting all the dots. It really was connecting everything. And it was going deeper and deeper and deeper into all of these civilizations and their sacred history. And it's just been such a journey now. It's going into quantum mechanics and quantum equations being planted in my head. So it's gone from being an experiencer to somehow transitioning into an interest, to transitioning into coming up with a complete blueprint for the ancient world and what they're telling us. And it's now progressing into everything, into religions, into the ancient world, into the stars, into the creation itself. You know, there's a when you look at the initiations and some of the things that they say and some of the things that they experience and some of the things that they do in these rituals, all these things have happened to me without me being involved in the rituals. It's almost as if I'm being initiated without being in the temples, like the ancients were. And you know, when they say, you know, the secret of secrets, when the face of the deity appears to you, well, that's happened to me, you know, and I've not been in the temples as far as I'm aware, but it's quite clearly being guided, it's quite clearly being steered, it's quite clearly, when I put a talk together, there was an instance a few years ago when I was invited to do a talk at the UFO conference, which it was originally for one day, but then they asked me to do the 2 days. Now, as soon as they invited me to the UFO conference, all of a sudden I kept getting all of these images in my head of a slideshow, a PowerPoint, and it really was a chronological sort of order, but I felt that it was being put there, it was being steered, and that it was a certain message that something somewhere wanted to come out. And the synchronicities from that point on, from me doing the slideshow, from day one, where I was on the stage doing the talk on day one, and after the talk, this gentleman came up to me and said, "I've just taken a picture of you on the stage, and there's 2 massive orbs, one either side of you."
Wow.
2, then speaking to the organizer the next day, and without knowing about the conversation about the photos and the orbs, she said, she's a psychic medium who was the organizer. She said, when you were on stage talking, 2 elders walked in wearing white robes, and they were there for your talk. Now, when you put the feeling that my talk was being steered, when you then put the synchronicity of the gentleman saying there was 2 orbs, something either side of me, so the next day the medium saying there were 2 people there for your talk, when you start putting all these synchronicities that are independent of each other, that the one doesn't know the other, then you start to pay attention.
Yeah.
And if it was just one event by itself, you could just wash it off and say, yeah, okay, it's coincidence. But when you have all of these synchronicities all of the time, then you start to take notice. And it's quite clear that everything I do, that everything I say, that everything I piece together is being given. It's being given.
And there's more to come. There's going to be a lot more to come, because you've said that you've got to alter quite a few things, and you're working on different things now, aren't you? You know, related to the same thing, but probably more depth, I would imagine.
It is. I mean, really, it is extremely in depth, and I've just done a documentary series on Iconic, David Icke's channel, and the producer said before we started to film, we need to go in at a shallow level, because what I don't want to do is people who are new to this, we don't want to lose them.
No.
So we need to go in at a very shallow level.
Yeah.
Now, that's what we did, and it really was I mean, it was deep, but it was still a shallow level, and and that's what we wanted to do. So that's how I sort of see things. It's like scuba diving. If you get your scuba diver gear on and you're sitting on the boat and you're waiting to be told to go upside down and jump in the sea, when you do that, what you do is, first of all, you get used to the surroundings, and then you start going a little bit deeper under the surface, checking your oxygen until you're comfortable, and then you're going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. But you don't go from the boat to the seabed in one go. So what I try to do is teach people scuba diving that way.
Yeah.
So in other words, you go in at a shallow level, the next time a little bit deeper, then a little bit deeper, then a little bit deeper. Some of the things that I could reveal really is at the depth of ancient mystery. Really goes back to the mystery schools of what they originally taught. But what they originally taught, in essence, is that you are the center of everything.
Well, Michael, I love your work. I think it's absolutely fascinating. For me, it blows my mind. And it's just great to hear you talk. And I hope that, you know, as time goes by, because the world is going to change over the next few months as well, with more rules and controls. And it depends on the pushback from the people as to how this all pans out. But things are going to change, and more things and knowledge are going to become more apparent to the public. And I wondered if we can sort of take it like the next step further and talk about something, you know, that's relatable a little bit more down the line.
Yeah, what is happening at the moment?
Mm.
If you look at a politician called Rahm Emanuel, who was a senior member of the Obama government, and he was famously documented saying, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." So what we have now is a good crisis, and they're not going to let it go to waste. What we are seeing, and I've seen leaked documents that have come from government meetings that have been leaked by civil servants. We have what is known as the Great Reset, which is really the restructure of society. Restructuring society in the way in which they wish it to be, which is more control, more surveillance, more psychology, you know, social disapproval techniques, which has been rife during the last 12, 15 months. You know, you're not wearing a mask, you're a danger, you're dangerous, get out. And it's keeping people in that split that I was talking about, in that duality, in that amplifying the complementary opposites, really. What we are going to see is more and more of a push towards the Great Reset. And they will be using many different ways of doing that. How far they get is really dependent upon us.
Yeah.
And you've seen that at many different stages through this pandemic, that when the people have repulsed anything, they've withdrawn it. And it's really just testing the water, just to see how far they can prod and how far they can go. What I will say is, if you imagine a movie, now the producer, the editor, the script writer has written that movie, and they have written the ending. So those people know the ending. Then you have the actors who also know the ending, but they are acting each scene until they get to the conclusion. What we are seeing now, we are the actors acting out what has already been concluded, what has already been written. We are going to win, but it's going to be a rough ride. But we are going to win.
I hope we do, because we don't want that type of world in the future of complete control and no, what they want.
We don't. But they're underestimated. There's a lot of people asleep, as I said before. You know, and until it is in your awareness, you cannot know. And what people are doing is they are putting their trust and their belief in the people who wish to do them harm.
I know. And this is why I like to do this sort of thing and put out loads of things that I do on Facebook to wake people up as much as I can and to help people. That's the overall agenda. And I feel that, Michael, in the future, you're going to be helping lots of people to come to terms with what's really gone on and help them to understand it a lot more. So I think you're going to be very busy. There's a lot more work for you to do, isn't there? That's for sure.
There is, and you know, when people realise the extent of the deception, it will be a shock. You know, it's like, as I said, that they're putting their faith in people who they trust, who they believe have their best interests in heart. They don't. And you know, when people realise this, that there will be a shock, that there will be upset, there will be outrage. But like we said, you know, unless it is in their awareness, they're not going to know. And by doing things like this, hopefully we are putting it into their awareness. Once it is, then they will know. And then you can, you know, I mean, just sit down and look at the ridiculousness of the things that we're being asked to do, you know, and sit down, you're safe. Stand up, you're not. 9:59, you're safe. At 10 o'clock, you're not. You know, where it's sit 6 feet apart and you're okay. But yet this is a deadly airborne virus that can travel from China to England in 2 days. But sitting 6 feet apart, you're fine. You know, going into a supermarket, and they'll all be on these perpex screens of safety, and there's a 3-foot gap at the bottom of them. You know, and it's like, please, you know, come on.
We're more intelligent than that.
You know.
But people have had their trust in governments and the NHS, and this is where it's all come from. They've actually made this bed for us to kind of lie in, really. and we have to just shake ourselves and wake ourselves up from it. So Michael, thank you so much. I really do appreciate what you've done here today, and thank you for your time, and hopefully we're going to get together again for a bit of a deeper episode, probably in months to come, like towards the end of the year perhaps. So thank you very, very much, Michael. What I'm going to do is put your link in this video, and also on all the posts that I put out as well, so people can get to know more about what you do in your work on your website.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.